So I just wanted to start with this. This is The Guardian. It's an editorial in The Guardian 2 years ago. And they had, like they say, they even have an opinion about future library, and they call it Hope in Practice. And it was a very moving editorial. It has a lot more into it, but I think to be given this much credit was amazing, and was something the artist and I had no idea would happen when we started this project and we started our collaboration. Along with this, Hope in Practice is this quote from Margaret Atwood, who is part of the project. And she said, "The planet is changing. We need creativity, ambition, and some powerful new stories to understand how we can change with it." Because it's like, if you have an imagination about the future, if you can imagine the future, you can also create it, right? So this is like the backdrop I just wanted to start with, because I will now share what this is all about is actually how important art and culture is in our time. It's crucial to connect art and culture and the more emotional part of our lives into creating, if we are able to create hope. There's so much uncertainties, as you know, and so many things are happening at the same time. So I think it's extremely important to connect art and culture into all kinds of understanding and strategies and how to create positive change and hope. So for you to know a little bit more about me, I just want to have this film in the back, because my name is Hovind. For the ones of you that knows Norwegian, Hovind is a Viking offer place. And this is the view from the farm I grew up in. So I'm carrying the name of the farm. And the farm is on the hill with the same name. And it's, I think, 14th generation with my family on this farm. I'm mentioning this because I'm not connected to the farm anymore. And my family's not having the farm anymore. But through these projects I'm going to share with you, I have learned that what I thought was useless knowledge, immaterial knowledge, I understand now that it's crucial. And this is me. Believe it or not, it's in 1986. And this is way up north in a small place called Nixun. And I moved there and started to rebuild this ghost town that you can see in the middle. And with the Technical University in Berlin, we made a trust, and we started to think, how can we make, there's a ghost town, it's a fishing village, small fishing village that people were paid to move from there in the 70s. And the Technical University in Berlin, they needed a place for students to work and also to take youngsters. This is when the wall was existing. So a lot of young people came to this crazy place, and I was involved there, and we made a trust. And I just want to remind you, we are actually putting up a windmill on the one image. And it was extremely interesting to see that we had a windmill, we had a solar energy, it was social sustainability with young people. And we actually got the first sustainability prize from the European Union, the Council, in 1988. This is the entrepreneurish me. I come from this really farm, forest place. And then I went to this crazy up north, far away, to this tiny village, as you can see here, if you're able to see it. It's very tiny. And we started to rebuild this place. And today there are people living there, only 23, actually, but still, it's brought back to life, actually. This is the entrepreneurial part of me. It's a beautiful place. If you come, you should have to go there. And I think what it shows is that I have always had this drive and interest of curiosity, making things happen, make the practical utopias. And it didn't start with art projects that came later. I'm trying to share with you now is that it's part of me, and I think it's part of all of us. So this is just to see how deeply this has been part of my way of thinking and my way of living. And then this is another example. In 2000, my husband runs a theater, and together we bought this ship. I don't know how a person from the deep forest would want to buy a ship without money and without any hard place to put it, but we did, and everything worked out. Another crazy practical utopia that is to create something strange, beautiful, totally out of the box. And it existed for 20 years with a bed and breakfast, a cafe in the top, and then 220-seat theater. That was also the entrepreneurish me. But I've also worked with city development from the last 20 years, and I've worked in this transformation of the harbor in Oslo. If many of you have been there, it has the opera, it has in the frontier, and it has the library, it has the Munch Museum, and it's almost finished now. So now it's become a quite vibrant place, not as diverse that I personally would like it, but it's a very vibrant place and a well-functioning new part of the city. And I also worked with in the construction business for many years. So I was working with the new airport. I was also in the top management of building a hospital. This is an art piece at the hospital because I was also managing the art project. And why I'm mentioning this is, again, since I want to share with you, because I'm a practitioner, I'm not a theoretical person. I love theory. I love contextualizing things, but I love to practice things and make things happen. I'm a little bit I think it can't be too slow for me, to be honest. So I have all this energy that I would like things to happen. And so I want to reflect with you. I want to share this with you before I go who I am and where I come from and what I worked with, because this has influenced how I worked with these art projects that I'm going to talk to you later about. And what the core of this is actually how to balance linearity and explorative processes. When you are working in construction business, all is about budget, keeping your budget, your timeline, and the quality. And I know how to do that. But I also then have a big part of me in art, in innovation, and then thinking out of the box. And these two worlds don't necessarily connect very well, but my mission is to explain to people that this is so important to be able to have a much more explorative approach to life, because the world is changing so rapidly. And also we need all this imagination to create hope and all that. So we need to combine the two things, not stop being linear, of course, but to combine it. So I think that the linear world is very strong. It's all planning, control, and all that. So that has a very strong effect on our lives. So it's that's why I want to emphasize and put more energy into the explorative part. So, and future literacy. This is my really what I think is very important. And this is the UNESCO's definition on future literacy. Being future literate empower the imagination. It enhances our ability to prepare, recover, and invent in the face of change. And my point with the future literacy is, when I've been working with this project for many years, I see that this is exactly what it's about. It's try to become future literate. And what is that about? What kind of competences, tools, and do we need to be able to practice futures literacy? And I'm seeing and I'm watching that a lot of this is much more in the forefront now. A lot of people work in future forums, and so it's a wave coming, I think, about this future literacy approach and theories and tools. So I think it's not that I've discovered it, of course, but since I'm part of this future library work, I feel like a scout of what's happening in the world. And art then. So I took this image of Margaret Atwood. It's in Sigrid Undset, for the ones of you who know the Norwegian Nobel literature winner for many years ago. And she's sitting in her chair, and she gave a lecture, and she said how to be human, how to survive as a human this is the core of the matter. the core of community, the core of humanity, the core of the arts. So I want to put art into the future literacy part in that way. This is Olafur Eliasson. He is an artist from Iceland. And I think he puts it very beautifully. I don't know if anyone of you saw this art project, but he did it at Tate Modern in London. It's just a big sun. And what it created this immersive experience that people just lay down and enjoy the sun altogether. And what he says so beautifully is that art has the ability to connect you to your senses, body and mind, and make the world felt. So back to linearity versus explorative approaches. I want to share with you some examples that they're not complicated. I've tried to make them really simple, but it's really important to understand. These are my leading kind of, leading points, at least success factors in any approach I have to any challenge. And one is that I work in the construction business and with art, and my colleagues are usually then engineers and economists, and they would love to choose what kind of art we would put in their construction sites, like buildings and public spaces, but they have a tendency to choose what the reptile brain wants and what's very lasting because it's a permanent, so what is economically efficient to choose. And in Norway, that is a moose in branch. And what I'm saying is that the interesting thing with moose in branch is nothing wrong with a moose in branch, but the problem is that it tends to be the choice every time. And I don't know if you've seen this in Canada. They have a very big moose also, but then suddenly a new moose in Norway turned up, another art project. And then we have a competition with the Canadians who has the largest and the world biggest moose. And I'm from Elverum, which is a city and outside Oslo, and it has a restaurant called the Eistua. And now they got a new roundabout. And what's in the middle of the roundabout? Two moose. So the point is that it's so easy to choose more of the same. That is so much easier to choose something different. So in where you're at, you might not have mooses as a metaphor to this, but I'm sure you have something else. It could be anything that we repeatedly choose instead of choosing something extraordinary. So it's more of the same, which is that we're battling with this reptile brain, the default thinking in our minds, in our brains and the easiest choice. And then there's another point, and that is we have a tendency, all of us, to anticipate decisions, which means we have a tendency to become more Catholic than the Pope. And which means also in a job, we have a tendency to become more strict than our boss. And that is something I think we should, and the law. And I think this is something we have to stop with. We did stop with, because or else we will just do incremental changes and incremental ideas. And I think, and we will be more restrictive. And this could be at the personal level, but it could also be at cultural level in organizations that all these voices that would say, we've tried that before. No, that doesn't work here. And all these kind of voices. And those are really limiting our possibilities. And that's why I'm mentioning it. I also worked at the airport in Bergen. It's on the west coast of Oslo. No, I'm in Norway and Oslo. We had a big discussion what kind of art project we should have at the airport. And the marketing director, she said, well, if we're going to have an art project here, it has to brand Bergen, the city, and the region. And I said, well, if you ask artists to do that, they won't play with us. And I mean, if you know what you want, you can buy it from designers. But if you want something extraordinary, you have to trust the process, the creativity of an artist, and you can't be so instrumental and tell them what you want. it's not only when it comes to art, but this is like something also I'm very important. It's very important. So finally, after I think 4 meetings or discussions at least, she decided to trust the artist, the brief, that it should be open. And you know what she got? She got this big sign from an Icelandic artist, Ragnar Kjartansson. They're really, really tall. They're outside the terminal in the Bergen city. So when you arrive in Bergen or you leave, this is what you see. And it's the most Instagram work ever, I think. So she got a branding of her airport without ordering it. And I believe that's when magic can happen if you're willing to take the risk. And talking about risk, finally, this is my final point on this, is in the linear world, risk has to do with closing all risk actions, Instead of in the innovation and art world, risk has to do with which door do we have to keep open as long as possible. It's a totally different way of doing it. So if you do the classical linear risk assessment on art, nothing would happen. And this comes for Future Library for sure. It would have not happened. We still are not in control of that work. So if you want magic to happen, you have to have a discussion with yourself, your organization, your colleagues, whatever. What is our attitude towards risk? Okay, back to Bjørvika. This is the opera roof, by the way. It's an art project. And so what I'm going to share with you now are the project in Bjørvika. I'm just going to watch the time, so I just love to talk. So I just want your questions. And so this opera roof was the only brief for the artists. We wanted the artists to create work in the public spaces that were not moose or drop sculptures that comes from somewhere else and just drops down. We wanted art that would create, and the name of it was Slow Space. And it's the opera roof, which was the brief, because when you walk the opera roof, for the ones of you who have been in Oslo, it's like walking up up landscape. And it's why, and you have to slow down. It's a non-commercial place. It's publicly open for anyone. You don't have to go to the opera. And these values were the ones that we wanted the artist to recreate. So my first point is about soil literacy. Between this crazy intersection like this, it's a tunnel underneath, and this has all to do with the urban development, with the waterfront. So all the soil, everything was removed, and they created these ventilation towers, and then they said there's going to be a common, just a crossing in front of the two ones in the back. This became the most attractive place for the artists to work. People could not believe it, But what they have found when they were given lots of time to research, they found this beautiful picture. It's the view over at the same view where I was standing. I had taken the previous picture, and it was from 1884. And if you look closely to this picture, you can see the farming land exactly where the towers were now, meaning that it was possible to grow there. It's very hard to imagine. But Future Farmers, which is an art collective, American-Belgic art collective, with the leading artist Amy Francischini from San Francisco, actually, or from California, they proposed to create an art project in this crazy spot. And they wanted to create an urban farm with a bakehouse. That was their dream. And everyone was laughing. Nobody believed in it. Nobody thought urban farming in Norway would be relevant for people. And so it was really, really hard in the beginning. But being stubborn enough and talking about art as the reason why we're doing this, you can get away with a lot of things actually. So you just have to say, well, it's art, then it's okay. But it would show later that it has had big impact on a lot of things. And this is in the beginning. Had to buy soil, topsoil, and I'm standing this is an old picture, as you can see. I'm standing there in the middle and shuffling soil together with this man, and he was the grounder of this ecological restaurant, which is now famously known with Michelin stars. And he came running and he said, "I'm not laughing. I'm here to support you, because this is exactly what we did when we started our restaurant. Nobody believed in it. Everyone was laughing at it. But now when we are so successful, they want to put us as a brush." And also he said, and another point is that something is cooking. Because what we did, we gave away 105 square meters, there's tiny, tiny plots of soil, and more than 4,000 applied within a couple of hours. And we thought, okay, something is cooking. And this is story now, but when we started this, people thought we were crazy, as I said, and people didn't believe in it. But now urban farming has become so important in Oslo, in Norway, and I think around the globe. So this has been an example on how to introduce these kind of projects, things that we didn't think were relevant in an urban city, in our commons. And it has changed our perception of what a public space can be, and also how our parks can be. So now I think there are more and more edible parks, and also this to have big lawns is becoming almost banned in a way, not formally, but all these lawns without any flowers, they're not good for diversity at all, biodiversity. So it has changed a lot in people's perception. And the artist working with art is doing something extraordinary to everything. So what the artist proposed, to have a soil procession with farmers from around Norway donating soil to this special urban farm. And we had a procession through the city of Oslo. Again, people thought this was really odd, but it's so important to open people's minds. And we walked from the botanical gardens to the waterfront, and that's where the donation happened. And this is a big flatbread. It's textile, of course, but these were the farmers, and the farmers just loved it, that the artists were interested in their project. And so, this is where we had the gathering, and we in the middle there is a declaration, a land declaration, that we are taking this land to build a cultural institution on the same level as the Munch Museum or any art museum. Because thinking about the cultural heritage, the immaterial cultural heritage in farming and baking is so crucial to us. So this is the focusing on the immaterial part. And what's beautiful working with artists again is this, what Amy had thought of was, of course, what would all these donations look like? It's all these symbolic donations from above. And these were all the different soils. So just this watching at this image, it's a lot about learning about soil even. I've learned so much, you won't believe it. And now it's become this vibrant, still temporary, but becoming permanent. And it has a lot of visitors, a lot of people are growing there. And this is the point here is not the Munch Museum, which is the new Munch Museum in the back, but actually the grains in the forefront, because these are svedjerug, which were imported by the Finnish immigrants 400 or 500 years ago. And just learning about the old grain stories, there is another layer with this art project. And it's impossible for me to mention all. And then they proposed to make this beautiful bakehouse. And it's a ship. The model is a rescue ship, a Norwegian rescue ship that made a revolution on the sea when it was built, and it rescued a lot of people. So this is about rescuing grains, rescuing cultural heritage. So there's lots of layers to this project. So, and this was, oops, here we go. It's nice to hear some sound maybe. So this was the celebration of the 10th anniversary last fall. And it was amazing how many people. Can you imagine how great it was in the beginning? And we have people cooking, we have people together in eating and growing and baking, and we have art project and cultural events. And it's become and turned out like a extremely beautiful place, an important place for the city, because the city now has hired a city farmer in a fixed position at this place. So now there are lots of people organized, but it's become something that the city has embraced. They have also made a policy. So all, from being kind of made fun of, it's become something very important for the city. And I just want to mention to you Judd, because Judd is an artist and architect, and he came to Oslo 3 days after the big explosion in the grain silos in Lebanon. I don't know, in Beirut, if you remember that. And so he was very traumatized. And I can tell you also through COVID, we learned that Loseter has become a very important place for especially immigrants and foreigners that were stuck in Norway because of COVID. And now we have the same situation, both because of the war in Ukraine and stuff, that people that needs places to meet other people, sharing something that is intangible, sharing something we know with the language of, but we don't speak it. I mean, baking and growing is something we have in common, something that is important to all of us. And so coming there, you can actually share this knowledge without knowing each other's language. And what he's saying here, and this, he says, after coming here from Lebanon, after years filled with terrible events that shook fundamental aspects of my life, Loseter gave me hope. A hope to make friends, to continue cultivating my passion for art, and to continue to be curious, to continue creating monumental projects. And I think this was so beautifully said, and about how important art is, and also how important places like this are for people, for peace, for sharing, for the understanding of the commons and what we have in common, and also to create hope for people. So finally, the soil literacy part is, there is a Norwegian philosopher, his name is Vetlesen, Jon Olav Vetlesen, and his point with the soil is, he says that because most of us will live in urban areas, and if we want our kids to gain empathy towards nature and soil, they need physical experience, not only the cognitive theoretical approach to it, but they actually need to feel it to be able to gain empathy towards it. And this is also something I understood. Thinking back to the farm, I thought it was useless, everything I had learned. I had kind of rejected the farming, but I didn't have brothers. So I had to work a lot on the farm. And working at this space with this artist, I realized I know so many things that I wasn't aware of. And about wind, soil, texture, whatever. I knew smells. So all this unarticulated knowledge I was carrying and I had thought was useless, I understand today it's crucial. And ocean literacy. I guess many of you might have seen this in New York Times, the famous walrus that we killed, and the country was divided. It was really an eye-opening for me to really understand that we have this default kind of decision-making of killing it instead of living next to it or leaving it alone and respect it, And this is something that I've been very concerned of, the ocean, the fjord, Oslo fjord, is dying. And we want people to discover the oceanfront, the waterfront. And I know since I work with the construction business and I work with the developers, I know they were really afraid of if people would find a way and use the swimming area they have planned and built. That's not a problem. People in Norway now are this is the waterfront in Bjørvika, and it's crowded on a nice day though, but it's crowded and it's extremely popular. And again, this nice bathing, but then still we are dumping. These bicycles are found in the water, so you understand that. And you have Oslo in the back of the picture, but so. This is, again, our perspective. We don't know what's below the surface, but we like to swim. We like to enjoy the ocean. But this artist, Elin Sørensen, she made me aware of the neighborhood and the neighbors, the other species living below the surface. And since she did that, I've totally changed my approach to the ocean and to the fjord. And I think what's crucial now is actually to change the perspective. We can't any longer think about the fjord and the ocean as if it is to our service. Only a place we swim, a place where we can put the boats, a place where we can put floating constructions. We have to take the oceans and the fjords perspective. We have to think, what do they need to live there and to survive there, and how, because that is now become a big problem when it comes to the Oslo fjord, the fjord that goes all the way into Oslo. So together with other people, I initiated to take kids into the water and to, again, dive down and get to know the neighborhood. And again, it's this to make sure they get the physical experience about what's down below the surface. So I started this fjord school together with some other people, and it's based on the same kind of ideology that I was mentioning. You're seeing something. It's soil literacy, ocean literacy, and now time literacy.
In the forest, there is a city, and in the city, there is a library, the Future Library. The Future Library is an artwork that is going to unfold over 100 years, where each year from 2014, a writer is commissioned to write any piece, nonfiction, fiction, poetry, in any number of words, and it will not be read until 2114, when the books are printed from the pulp of the tree.
Oops. Oh, something happened. I touched. Okay.
My version on, or do you want to?
Let's start here.
Okay, perfect.
Why did you want to do this, Margaret, as the first writer of this art project?
This is a letter to the future. We assume that people will still be around, that they will be able to read, that they will still be interested in reading, that there will still be a library. We don't know how the world will be with the climate and humankind, so this is a project that is immersed in hope and a cosmic sense of time. Think of this as cultural storage for the future.
That books are trees and libraries are forests.
And that this future could be beautiful.
This is the art project Future Library in short, with Margaret Atwood and Katie's voice over animated. And Future Library is, Katie is the other artist that I commissioned for the developers in Oslo. And from the brief that you know now, she came to Oslo, she did her research, she went back to Berlin, where she lived at that time, and she called me and she asked, I think I have a perfect project for the waterfront development, but I need to live in a forest first, because I've never really done that. And so she asked if I had access to any cabin or house in the forest, and that's a very funny question to ask Norwegians, because we have a lot of houses in cabins in forests. So I took her to a family cabin, And she stayed there for a week, and she came out of there and she said, I know exactly what to propose. And she said, it's going to last for 100 years. And I was like, no way. Oh, that's not good. Oh, I was thinking about my board, and I was thinking it's not possible, So I'm also anticipating. So I'm being strict, but then and then she said we're going to grow a forest, and I was looking in the waterfront. And I thought, no, it's not possible. Again, it's not possible. But it is amazing that today we are given a forest, and by the municipality. And we are growing. We cut the trees that were ready to be cut. It's not an old forest. I just want to mention that it's a managed forest, and we've planted 1,000 new trees. And every year for 100 years, we're commissioning an author to write a manuscript that will stay unpublished and unkept until 2114, and that's when they will all be published on these trees. If we make paper or trees at that time. That's up to the future to decide, but that is the concept. And now already we have Margaret Atwood. She was the first author. David Mitchell. We have Sean from Iceland. Elif Shafak from Turkey. Han Kang from South Korea. Knausgård, as you maybe know, he's Norwegian. We also have Tsitsi Dangeremga sitting on the bench there with Katie Patterson. And we have Ocean Wong. And we have Judith Shalansky. And finally, and their manuscripts are put into a beautiful room made out of the forest we already cut. It's in the new public library, Dijkman. It was not taken for granted, but again, people were so positive and wanting this to happen, amazingly. So we were given a space up on the 5th floor, all the way on the top. This is the entrance, and the previous mayor, is in the forefront here. And it's a beautiful room. When you walk into it, it looks like this, and it has all these small hidden boxes where the manuscripts are. So today we have now 10 manuscripts here, and the names of the author you can kind of read them. But there are 90 years more years to go for this too. And it's visited, it's public, it's totally free. As the library, anyone can visit there, and you can meet anyone there. And it's become a very popular place to meditate. So the only thing we ask people is to take off their shoes. That's why all the socks are there, and to respect other people's space and time. And I just also want to mention that this is the king and queen, and they were giving certificates that you can. It's a pre-sale. It's like you buy this art project on your right, and it's a print made out of the paper, and it entitles you to get the whole edition in 2114. And I know a lot of the big universities, including the one in Decorah College, has bought one of these. But also Stanford and other universities have bought to the rare collection. And this project travels all over the world. I don't have a communication budget. I don't have a communication strategy or PR company helping me. This project travels, like Margaret Atwood said in the beginning, we need strong narratives for the coming world. And it's always a question. This is a tiny, tiny forest that you can visit, also publicly open. Anyone can go there anytime. And it's interesting to ask, why does it resonate with people all over the world? And a lot of people say it's very typical Norwegian or Nordic, and it couldn't happen anywhere else. But I'm not sure. So I'm really open to hear what you say. But it's obviously that it's grounded. It's authentic, it's about nature, and it's very egalitarian. Everyone's the same in the forest. And it's about environmental stewardship, climate crisis, nature crisis. It is really, but I think it's more than that. I think it's about basic human needs that we need and are in need of now. It's about universal themes, such as rituals. It offers rituals because every year we walk to the forest with the author in the footsteps of the previous authors. Here you can see Oceanbong and the Crown Prince of Norway, and I'm sure you wouldn't spot her unless you knew who she is, because she's, of course, just walking to the forest with all of us. And also we walk. It's quite crowded. We're a little bit worried about that, of course, thinking about the forest. But we walk to this place and we sit down together. And those trees with the red ribbons are the grown trees now. And it's nothing else than this. It's a very simple ritual, a very simple and emotional ritual. And for people from all over the world are attending, and we're streaming it because we know and we understand, and we don't want everyone to travel. So it's streamed, so it's accessible for people all over. And so it offers rituals, and this is from last year. This is the new mayor to the right in the white, and this is Valeria Luiselle. She's Mexican, but she's a professor at Harvard. This is when she gives her manuscript. It hands over to Katie behind the tree, and then she gives it to the mayor, and then they both promise to take care of this manuscript the next 90 years now. And the next thing, it offers hope, as I mentioned with the Guardian.
My baby daughter will be 93 years old in the year 2114. Should I write will be or would be 93 years old? My eldest daughter could be 105. It's difficult math to pronounce out loud, a difficult horizon to imagine. I'm certain there will be mountains, vast deserts, entangled rainforests, winds and rainstorms. There will be mycelium. The oceans will be there, swelling and retreating as they have been doing for so long. I'm pretty sure that apps and QR codes will have become as obsolete as fax machines and beepers have become now, and that is a good thing to imagine. Maybe there will be no national borders, no CEOs, and no cancer, and that is also such a good thing to imagine. I'm sure there will be curiosity and people that fall fiercely in love and long conversations, and that is not so hard to imagine. I accepted this invitation to form part of the future library because I hope, with all my strength and longing and capacity to imagine, that in the year 2114, there will be an abundance of musical scores, wild horses, a cappella choirs, oil paintings, baobabs, astrological predictions, humpback whales, old and new languages, blooming saguaros, hands that write, and eyes that read.
Hey, now I'm lost.
Yep, I think slide back one to the left there.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you. Oh, I haven't seen it for a while, so I got a little bit moved by it, the hopeful part. So the last, what it also offers is, of course, this strange word, trust. It's really about, I'm often asked by journalists, why are you doing this? I mean, you're going to be dead. And why do you think anyone would care to take this over and finalize it? And that the only answer to that is trust. It's a very intergenerational project, trusting the coming generations. But I always throw it back to ourselves, because I'm saying, well, they have to trust us. Because if we don't start this project, there is nothing to hand over or to fulfill, I mean. And the fun point with this is that Future Library is triggering this our perception of time, and short-termism is our greatest threat, as I said, and Katie Patterson is a matter of time. So the whole work is triggering also this kind of discussion. So I just want to finalize with just grasping the surface of understanding time that I've learned and thinking more about. So deep time is one thing when it comes to time. And Katie, she had done this project before, and what she did. She placed a microphone under this glacier on Iceland, and it was in 2007. And she set up a phone, and people could dial and listen to the glacier melt. That was quite funny for a lot of people, of course, because a lot of people know how it melts. But I think even those people are now stopped laughing, because we know now that the glaciers will disappear quite soon. So, and I always show this book because I think it's quite interesting and fun, because this is the geologist kind of era, this deep time. And it's not about mindfulness anymore. It's going to be more about timefulness. And then when it comes to presence, there is Elise Bolding. She's Norwegian-born, actually. She's Norwegian-born sociologist and poet. And she's dead, and she was a Quaker and known for her peace work. But she is also known for her model of thinking when it comes to 200 years present, and the space to create this space, intergenerational space. And again, this is the farm where I grew up. I found these letters. You can say it's written in my last name, and it's from 1913, and it's dear son Ivar. It's the dear son, my son Ivar, and Ivar was my great grandfather's son, whom I didn't know of. So I just accidentally found these letters, but I suddenly learned that my great grandfather was writing about the life on the farm, and this is my 100 years back, knowing what that past was, the history of this, learning more about that. And these are my grandchildren. I've knitted the sweaters so that I know how to knit, but I don't want to wear it because it's wool. It itches. These are my 100 years forward. And when you start thinking about your present as this space, you think differently about decision making and decisions you make. So the last thing is cathedral thinking. It's Stephen Hawking who brought this term into my awareness, and he said that in the future it's not going to be about inheriting watches, real estate, or money. It's going to be about inheriting cross-generational projects, such as Future Library. And this is a book called by Roman Krishnadi called The Good Ancestor, How to Think Long-Term in a Short-Term World. And I just want to mention it to you to start being curious about reading about it. He's just come with a new book also, which is very interesting. And I think this is really at the core, how to become good ancestors. How can we think intergenerational? How can we democratize the future, bringing future needs, imagining future generations, what they want us to decide now? And it's complicated, but I think we have to do that. And for many years, for the 7 first years, I didn't dare to ask the municipality for a contract for getting the forest and for having the room. But then 2 years ago, this is the vice mayor of culture. He brought me the contract to the forest. So the municipality of Oslo, with it's a political will, political decision, signed a 100-year contract with me and the trust about Future Library. And they've never done it before. So it's possible for innovation in that term too. So my point is then, summing it up, soil literacy, ocean literacy, time literacy makes us future literate. Last image, I just want to show you this. I love this kind of connecting the dots. I've just accidentally found this. It's the first windmill in Norway from 1910. And remember me in 1986 putting up a windmill. I've never done it before. This was on the hill where I grew up. It's fantastic, I think. Thank you. Don't stop sharing then.
There is so much rich conversation that you have inspired, I think, for my brain already, and watching the chat and the Q&A.
Okay,
really
good.
They're coming in. So first of all, thank you. It's incredible to think about the many ways that the Norway that we know and love in contemporary society, your fingerprints have touched lots of the things that are iconic for Norway. And it's really a privilege to get to spend time learning from you and talking with you. I think there at the end, you were talking about the logistics of getting a contract. And Maren asked earlier, how do we help local communities foster these sorts of creative, socially engaged projects?
Oh, that's a big question. You have to bring me over and I can come and, it's really, I think at least what's interesting, there was a governmental forum in Dubai in February, and they wanted me to come and share Future Library. And I asked, so why do you know of it? And they said, because of the 100-year contract, because it proves that it's possible with innovation in public sector, for instance. So I think this is what it comes to. I think it is possible. So we have to use other examples. This is what triggers me, is kind of to use art, and it doesn't have to be art, but to show that it's actually possible to create practical utopias. I mean, visions are important, but practical utopias are within reach. I mean, they're so close to us, and practical utopias are very hopeful. It's not possible to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
But call me.
Wonderful. We will. Patrice noted in the chat that much of what you've said feels like it requires a shift from linear and mechanistic thinking to systems thinking and design solutions. And on that same topic, someone else asked, what are some of the values in Norwegian society that help people, including you, use expansive thinking instead of linear thinking?
If you ask me,
the egalitarianism of the forest, and I'm guessing that's part of it.
Yeah, and that might be very, very special. I mean, the common and the in Norwegian allmenning, which is a very strong right, people see it as a very strong right that they can use the forest, any unfenced area. They have the right by law to harvest the mushrooms and the berries and all that, and also camp without asking the owner. This is a very strong understanding in Norwegians. But I think, unfortunately, we have a lot of linearity as well, of course. So we're fighting this, and I think it's sometimes Amy is from San Francisco, from California. So she's the one really have trained me in thinking out of the box. So I think we just have to bring up examples, try to create this space that is not a moose thing, that is not the instrumental thing, try to create that space for things to happen. And sometimes even design process are too linear for me. I think sometimes we are, because I worked with service design at the airport, for instance, and it's really always a question of trying to create this beautiful space for things to happen that is unexpected.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Jeffrey asked, in Norway, is there dedicated funding for art projects like these by the government or by developers? Is there a defined percentage of development and construction budget that's always pledged to public art? How does funding work? Yeah,
it's we don't have tons the way you do. You're so much better. You're much better at that than us, to have a philanthropic culture. It's very young in a way. But of course, we have state money, we have municipality money, and like you're saying, that there is like a default by a resolution that you have to put aside a certain percentage, not very big, to art if you in public buildings. But then also you have urban developers understanding that art and culture is becoming so important. So there's not necessary there's to have a resolution about it, because that's the public sector, not the private sector. So yeah, there are instruments that make people have to have art projects, but there are also mechanisms wanting art projects and seeing how useful that is. So my agenda is to try to make it not so instrumental, that you have to, if you want artists to work, they have to work freely, and you have to give them space and time to do research if you want something special.
Excellent. Thank you. I think the last question I'm going to pose, I'm going to share a little bit. My colleague Maddie Brown got to meet you first a few years ago when she traveled with a group of students to Norway. And she talked frequently about how folks in her generation often feel like decisions are being made by folks in our generation that will impact her and her peers and her children. And it sometimes feels hopeless and helpless. And she talked about her time with you as being one of the most hope-giving moments in her entire college career. So I'm going to ask you, where do you look for hope? What are you turning to for inspiration? Because knowing that you are bringing that hope to younger generations, where should the rest of us be looking?
I mean, first I have to comment that that's so beautiful. And I mean, what can I hope for if I could be an inspiration like that? No, I'm so happy to hear that. Of course, that it's inspiring. But I think for me, how I create hope, where I find inspiration, I think I go every day out, and I think I will think practical utopia attitude. I decide to be open to anyone I meet. I have this way, make my own instructions. I'm trying to keep them. And I'm like you, I'm so amazed by hearing about other projects, like when I met Amy and saw all her work. So I find a lot of inspiration through art and art practice, but not only, also design, but all that has to do with a more human way of thinking, which also, for instance, I was responsible for the passenger experience at the airport. And that was really all about being Europe's most efficient airport becoming Europe's best airport. And that is all about the more emotional human part of it. So I think I find inspiration in creating good.